Well, they need to prove something here in this opening match.
Yeah, we've got a few phases before we actually get a chance to see whether or not these teams are, world championship caliber. I think Midseason Brawl was kind of cool, but because it was played on, previous rosters, it's not really indicative of what things are going to look like. Specifically for our first team, Miracle, coming in here, a team that's been around for a long time, but we were talking about the return of Nitrogen, was on Ballistix the last time that they did have that World Championship team. But now Ballistix looks a little bit different. It's SC, Hooligan, Jonga, SC, and Magi. Okay. I thought of at least 8 different ways to pronounce most of these players' names, so I'm going to do my best to, as a newcaster, butcher them as much as possible so that the Peanut Gallery has as much time to add their commentary to today's broadcast.
You'll do fine. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to talk about the history of Nitrogen because he was fantastic off DPS. Like, he had a great Li Ming. His fall stat was fearsome, and that was kind of what he was famous for. His ability to play global heroes along with Jungha playing the Hunt Illidan, for example, in BlizzCon 2016 is where he really got famous and got popular, as well as his really good drafting. He was replaced by SDE, who I think lived up to the legacy by the end of 2017, and this year has continued to look good on mages. But Magi, I think, has been one of the weak points for this team. There's the SDE fan here. That's some emotes from his Twitch chat, or Twitch channel. But yeah, Magi has struggled to increase his hero pool on support. He's been, kind of a Uther Malfurion main, and Uther has been less meta recently. His Stukov has not been up to international standards. So Nitrogen returns here. Blue Beetle will also be on this roster, as well as Frankel. What's really interesting about this roster is, on the website, not on this graphic, Judy has tank here, but on the website, I was doing some prep yesterday and today, no one is listed as main tank. Now Judy is finally again listed as main tank, because I was a little bit worried if again they're going to see a lot of role swaps. This team is known for role swapping.
The meta will never be the same ever again. You just have to have enough damage to go through the opponent's tanks. But yeah, so Blue Beetle, for all of you anime fans out there, came in on a team named ReZero. So that was kind of seen to... Oh, he was kind of the star of the show back then, and so they've gotten the strong part of that roster. They've also brought in Frankel, who is a very strong part of Felize's roster. Of course, a huge Genji Tracer kind of player, super aggressive. And even in the promotion matches, or the Crucible, rather. Gotta get my terminology straight here. That guy looked on fire! So I'm excited to see a lot of strong components from different teams all kind of coalescing in the new Miracle.
Yeah, this is going to be exciting to see. I think Frankel is very underrated in the scene. Sniper is really the last piece of this team that was once originally TNL that really exists. Judy is the only other member from the old roster. Everything else is new. So this team is Miracle only in Sniper and name alone, really. So it's a completely new roster, and we've seen Miracle change the roster more than any other team. They've changed roles, positions, and they've just struggled to find success since 2016. Maybe this is the roster. Everyone's saying this is the strongest team in scrims right now. We're going to go into our battleground selection here. Dragonshire will be the first map chosen. It'll be chosen by Ballistix with bans on Volskaya and Infernal Shrines.
That kind of makes sense to me. Of course, Dragonshire is a bigger map, so it does reward you if you have really, really solid macro play. Basically repeating everything you said yesterday, because it is a big way that more established teams like Ballistix, who you would always consider a top 3 team out here in HGC Korea, can use their greater macro abilities to have that edge over teams that may not quite be up to par.
It's interesting to see the ban on Infernal Shrines as well, because that's a map that isn't really normally banned in Korea. I think the reason why it ends up drawing a ban here is because the meta is shifting a lot on Infernal Shrines right now. We're seeing a lot more Alexstrasza, more unique heroes. The Malfurion ban coming in first is something we only saw once from Genji yesterday, so kind of forcing the move away from the safe first pick Malfurions and also leaving the Maiev open. It has been kind of a shift we've seen just over the course of day one.
So Malfurion banned here. What does this leave open? Obviously, because it is such a large map, you do want to give, you do want to have as much global presence as possible. I think yesterday we actually saw the Malfurion left up, and we actually had a Johanna ban, but kind of the opposite here this time around.
Yeah, Johanna ends up being a really safe pick on this battleground because of her wave clear and her ability to interrupt Dragonshine channels. But also, she has the ability to be a strong hero against, you know, auto attackers, which is why it's quite puzzling and a big statement that Ballistix would go ahead and lock in the Task Tracer immediately when heroes like Garrosh are available. You can avoid the tank choke by picking it up early, and you're picking a Tracer into a blind by default. So, kind of an unusual pick here for Ballistix, but they're going to be confident that they will be able to use this Tracer to full effect. Let's see how Miracle wants to respond.
All right, well, all of a sudden, I cannot hear you anymore. But
yeah.
The draft goes on while we find what to unplug and plug in again. Maybe
Can you hear me now? Am I okay?
I cannot, but luckily we're close enough in the studio where we can still get that... I can still get most of the message. So, next couple of picks here, we're going to see a Deckard Kane Phoenix combo. I think yesterday, Deckard was mostly like kind of a last pick in the draft, but prioritizing him much more highly right before the second phase of bans.
Yeah, the Sergeant Hammer coming through here as a ban clearly means that they're expecting that Miracle would like to run the Garrosh. It's fine now, right? Yeah,
yes.
Okay. So we'd like to run the Garrosh, run the Hammer into the Garrosh they want to pick. Sorry, the headset threw me off here a little bit in this draft. Deckard Kane has been used a lot with Phoenix because there's a lot of things you can set up with his Stay a While and Listen. And not only that, but if you end up rooting members with the Scroll of Sealing, Phoenix just does massive damage. He Qs in, does a lot of AoE. So the Karazim ban comes through. A common support for Tracer Tassadar in this meta with Malfurion banned. Stukov has fallen off big time ever since Gen G started playing Karazim in the playoffs, a mid-season brawl. We just have not been seeing as much Stukov. It's been the Karazim show, so now they're going to have to flex away from that Karazim, and it's not an easy pick here when double support. The go-to is always Malfurion, Karazim the secondary. Now this Tracer pick feels a lot weaker.
Still looking for the next few picks for Ballistix. I think the biggest things that kind of surprised me here is that you're not seeing something like a Garrosh, like what else was super popular here yesterday? Okay,
a Tyrael.
Going to be a Tyrael coming out. I mean, I guess that kind of is going to fill that role, but this does not look like the drafts that I was used to. I felt super confident when I was coming in here with the G-Clef for things like Crucible, and earlier on I was like, okay, I kind of get how this works, but this is quite a bit different.
Well, in your defense, you know, this is a new meta that's being solved right now, and with the bans that we had of the Malfurion and the Karazim, this ends up being a pretty rare situation. I mean, the Rhaegar is super important to have against a Johanna Deckard because of all the CC he provides. You have to have a support that has Cleanse. So Stukov's kind of off the table. Lucio not going to be a possibility. And sure, even with Karazim, there's some risk with the lack of, the ability to remove CC, but you have the Rhaegar and the Tyrael now and Tassadar to keep this Tracer alive, so, you know, we're really looking now for a solo laner for Ballistix. We saw the Flex Tassadar solo laner yesterday, so it could just end up being a Sonya. It works in this composition so well, and now we get to see Nitrogen probably on the Sleeming once again, and we'll see this Dahaka return in, so...
Okay.
It's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, so the Dahaka's not really a big surprise. I think yesterday we got a chance to see exactly what it looks like when you just have a lot of global presence. I'm a little bit, every game that I get to watch Nitrogen not play Falstad is one that a little tear slides down my face, but it'll be exciting to see if that does eventually come out here. A last pick, Blaze. Now, this is something that I think I never really expected to see just because Blaze has been so dominant as a solo laner. You just look at the win rates and sort by, highest, and Blaze is just way up there at the top. So
yeah, it's been just DPS priority though, and wave clear priority in this draft, and with Miracle picking into their DPSs a little bit later and the burst coming in so late with Frankel's Li Ming, you have to expect that, with this kind of setup, Blaze would come in later because you're trying to make sure, okay, are they bursting? Because Sonya is so ideal in this draft. You have so much protection. She could do so much peeling. She could do so much damage in a fight. But when you see the Li Ming come through, you're like, well, Blaze is probably just safer. And interestingly enough, it doesn't look like we're going to see Nitrogen play DPS today. If I read that correctly, we'll have the reveals of the rosters in just a moment.
Dun, 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 dun. All right, away we go. It looks like for Ballistix, I don't think there's anything super surprising as far as which player on which hero.
Yeah,
all right.
It's going to be Nitrogen playing the solo lane. Now, we didn't know what he was going to play because he listed himself as specialist. I think I have a bit of an audio issue, at least that's what it sounds like to me.
Audio issues? HGC
Okay,
Korea?
it looks like it's fixed, but
okay.
But yeah, so we didn't know what he was going to play. Listed himself as specialist, which isn't really a role officially. You know, unless you're playing like Nazebo or Zagara as solo laner.
I'm a Nazebo only player. Can I be called a specialist?
So that was, I didn't know exactly what that meant. We didn't know what it would be until we got in game, but now we know he is going to be playing the solo lane role. So he's going to be playing the same sort of role he played when Falstad was a solo laner back in those old times you were mentioning.
Back in my day. Okay, so kind of the same idea. Maybe it's just a different word for the same concept. Still going to have, I guess, the semi-global, or I guess it is fully global, depending on where the brush is. One day we'll make a map that only has brush on the top side, so big nerf to Hawkins out there, but not yet.
Well, then they would just solo lane the bottom and they'd lane swap, and then he'd just be able to brush to the top. I guess it'd still be nerfed because there wouldn't be any brush in the middle or the sides, but you know.
Yeah, maybe once we have the I don't know, whatever is the second phase of Alterac Pass, because there was Alterac Pass and then there was the battleground right below that. I forget what it was called because I never played WoW, but
yeah,
there's another one. Either. All I remember is there was like a 10-minute diatribe of Kalaris talking about all the other Alterac areas.
Yeah.
And eventually I picked something up from that, but
I didn't pick anything up from that.
Well, it's not in the map pool, along with that one other map that I'm not supposed to talk about. So I think we can all be a little bit happier about that.
Sure, we won't mention the name, but I think everyone knows what you mean.
I made that mistake on my first HGC broadcast. Never again.
Looks like we're good. Well, looks like we're in game now. Everything is fine. Audio seems fine in my headset too, so I think we're okay. As we approach this early game, it'll be really interesting to see how Nitrogen performs on this Dahaka, because he's always been a split push type player, whether on DPS or, you know, DPSs that play the solo lane. It's a really interesting scroll of ceiling there. Did not catch anybody.
It was a zoning scroll of ceiling.
Yeah.
That's what most of mine look like. But yeah,
mine too.
No, this is truly a luxury for me. I am a little bit new to HGC Korea, and because this is a new phase with new rosters and specifically new players, well, I guess it's old players coming back as new players like Nitrogen, I just want to kind of zoom out and see what these new rosters look like. Like you were saying, Wolf, a lot of hype behind Miracle, having done apparently pretty well in scrims coming into this week. I don't know what to expect here, but I guess this is where we get to find out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is kind of a historical moment, right? This will be the first time Nitrogen has returned since he left Ballistix, and it'll be the first time that he plays against them as well. I mean, obviously, since it's his first time not playing with them, you know, it's not shocking the first time he faces them, but he gets to do it in his opening match, which is kind of a treat for us to see, and he's doing it with a new role that plays similarly to his old DPS. As you can see, he's controlling and winning that top lane at the moment in terms of Shrine control. The bot lane is being won up here, so they actually have an opportunity to take control of this Dragon, you know, Knight for just a second. It's not really going to work out, but they had for just a moment the opportunity to control it.
If I could set this up maybe a little bit more, what really is a remarkably consistent hallmark of HGC Korea is how delineated the teams are, how top-heavy it can be. And so when you have that experience being on a team like Ballistix, who's just always been kind of one of the royal teams of HGC up there in the top, like that experience is totally different than being like, on like, you know, Ace or Raven or any of those bottom teams. So for Nitrogen to have known what it has been like to be up at the absolute pinnacle of Heroes of the Storm professional play, and now to come back and try to do it all over again on Miracle with a whole host of new players on this roster, you know, that has to feel a little bit like a reboot. It's a
reboot. It's definitely daunting. I mean, you say the upper echelon, and we talk about you know, how different it is between these two teams. I mean, Miracle, it wouldn't be true to say they were a middling team. They were a bottom team and an unperforming team and a disappointing team for many years actually now in HGC Korea. So to come back from being BlizzCon champion to now and traveling the world, right, as only really on this roster Sniper has, it's got to feel a little bit strange, but at the same time it must feel like, as you say, a reboot and a new challenge. In this roster, I mean, the functionality, you can see they're playing this macro game, they're timing these camps better than Ballistix.
Yeah.
It's been an issue that Ballistix had at the midseason brawl, and now this top camp gets so much more value than Ballistix's did. They get a whole wall with this.
I mean, you could just see the value of that spell armor. Blaze just usually fantastic at wave clearing. Couldn't really do anything with 3 heroes up there. That is a very successful push. So already, you know, I have to keep myself from getting my hopes up about Miracle. You know, I saw the very strong new additions to the roster. I'm like, wow, you know, could this be, you know, is this the urn? You know, it might be, but this is a little bit too early to tell.
Yeah, the trade-off of that top camp, you know, pushing super hard was they did give control of this bottom lane. Ballistix was able to identify how many members were up pushing top, so they grabbed this camp. But again, it doesn't get that much value. They take an experience lead, but it is pretty insignificant at this point. Sniper, no shields, will just barely survive that pulse bomb. But this is an opportunity to try to get a pick and get the first Dragon Knight of the game. Miracle rotating back in towards that mid lane now, and it looks like they will be able to recontrol that top shrine. So very, very close early game. No kills, 4.5 minutes. And the experience remains very even.
Good attempt at zoning off, preventing the Dragon Knight for as long as possible. Miracle still in control, but I think it looks like Ballistix are trying to contest the lower shrine. I think upper is also being retaken by Blaze, so not going to be a Dragon Knight just yet.
Yeah, I mean, in this matchup between Blaze and Dahaka, it's really cooldown based, so when you have the cooldown advantage, or the health advantage, then you win the fight. But, you know, once John gets his stun, you know, this could turn around instantly. They're going to look for these picks here. They're constantly trying to grab kills, trying to get a Dragon Knight, but the second they rotate, they lose the shrine. So this is just kind of a cyclical problem here for Ballistix. And SC is a hero, he's on a hero that is designed to get kills in the early game if you want to control the objective. Otherwise, you're going to have to wait for 10. And they don't have too much of a power spike here with their only real DPS, quote-unquote, being Tracer. The Sanctification, the Ancestral, these things aren't going to help them straight up in fights. Miracle has the more sustained damage, so it's a little bit concerning for Ballistix that this early game has not really yielded the Dragon Knight, has not yielded a pick. This could be an opportunity, though.
Oh, Boggy taking a ton of damage is going to have to get out of there. Avoids the Scroll of Sealing, is just going to be forced to back away and pick up a little bit of extra healing from that well. But this is a big moment for Miracle. They've put a lot of damage down on the Ballistix and now have control over the center of the map. This shrine is going to go their way, and once again, with Dahaka fighting for that upper shrine, could see a big moment where they have access to that Dragon Knight.
Yeah, this push here is so annoying to deal with as well. Miracle, if they get this wall with just the poke that they have with Phoenix Li Ming, you know, in this case just being the Li Ming in the spot lane, but with Li Ming pushing super hard here, they're going to get this full wall, which is pushing them closer and closer to 10. And Ballistix, again, they don't get a huge spike at 10, so for Miracle to get 10 at the same time as Ballistix is a huge win for Miracle's composition. And it's going to allow for Dahaka to look for bigger picks in fights. Like, just everything about this composition for Miracle gets a bonus, whereas on the side of Ballistix, look at all these heroics. Bunker, sure, helpful defensively. The Ancestral going to be helpful defensively. Archon and Sanctification, you have to guess. These things aren't going to be too useful. Looking for a pick here on the Sniper, though, and he does get caught.
Yeah, totally blown up. Looks like the rest of Miracle couldn't quite come up there in time. I always kind of wonder what it must feel like to be in Phoenix's position. And I think back to every single one of the games I play when I am in that position.
Judgment locked in, by the way. Okay, they're going to commit to this because they know their comp needs to get picks. But when it fails like this, it fails hard. Stay a while, listen to me, and Hooligan's caught. They're looking for another blow up here. It's not going to happen. Phoenix is just now respawning. But you can see the difference here between what these comps are designed to do. Miracle looking for the longer fight, the sustained damage. Ballistix looking for the burst, the blow-up. And the support ban on the Karzi makes it so difficult to use Rhaegar this way. He can heal, but he doesn't do that much damage compared to a Karzium. So these picks, sure, they got the kill on Phoenix in the mid lane when Sniper was out of position. But Miracle is winning every other trade.
Hooligan went so deep with that judgment. I'm like, okay, well, I get the idea, right? You want to pick somebody, but to do it that deep, I think he was also under the outer wall turrets. So it's like, well, I don't know if that was, you know, really the way he wanted everything to work out. But after all is said and done, you know, we are going to see, okay, we were going to see Dragon Knight, but once again, that dynamic between Dahaka and Blaze up top is just so kind of frustratingly futile to watch, which is why, thankfully, we've only seen it a couple of times.
Yeah, I mean, I always gotta keep an eye on it on the mini-map, but it is a matchup that just kind of, one person wave clears, the other person goes takes the shrine, and then it just continues back and forth. This time, Sniper is rotating up, though, so they could look to collapse in. Blaze is a very difficult hero to catch and kill. Meanwhile, Ballistix is again going to see this rotation and trade it down for this neutral night camp in the bot lane. So every time they see that vision on the top of the map that members are missing, they go in here, but Miracle's going to contest. Big isolation coming down and the drag. Yeah, that is going to be the sleep to follow up.
Oh my god, just perfect combination. Miracle getting a nice kill. Now, Phoenix does go down at the same time, so it's just going to be a 1-for-1, but that did look like a better fight for Miracle.
Yeah. The trade is a good one for Ballistix because they have so much support that, you know, even though Miracle lost half their damage, they can't burst anymore in these fights and without Phoenix and Li Ming. It's going to be difficult to kill Tracer. No one can really continue the fight from here, but it's still a pretty good trade for Ballistix. It allows them to retreat away. Had they lost Tracer, they were basically just going to lose total control of the map because there's no more threat anymore. Miracle lost half of their damage, but with, you know, Tastar and Tyrael, etc. in this area, it's not the end of the world when you lose a Rhaegar because there's so much support for SC here. And Hooligan just continues to eat these orbs. Ballistix is doing what they can with this comp to take defensive fights really well. I mean, that's not the point of their comp, but they're still making it work to a certain extent, which is very impressive.
So if you could say that's not the point of their comp, what would you say the point of their comp is?
I think the point of their comp is just to control the early game, get an early Dragon Knight. They have good wave clear behind it with the Tassadar. Actually forces a bunker in Nitrogen. First day back on the job is forcing heroics out of one of the best, safest soul laners in the world.
The one-man bunker. Okay, I'm not sure if he just had like a panic moment, but he does seem to be doing a good job back in, I don't want to say his old role, but like the new version of his old role.
But yeah, to go back to your question, I mean, it's a comp that's designed to get kills, and then they have good wave clear to support, and actually decent camp clear time as well with the Rhaegar here and the Tastar to get kills, control the map early, and then just kind of snowball the game. Either way, I mean, they're leading in kills, they have control of the map when they get these picks, and, you know, they're forcing these fights on their terms, and the judgment is always a terrifying thing because you can judgment into a fight, try to pick somebody, then drop down the bunker, you have that extra safety, there's a lot of ways to maximize burst damage. If you don't get that kill though, and you've used all your tools, including the Ancestral, then Miracle's going to win the fight, so you need to make sure that when they commit to fights, there is that follow-up damage, there is that synergy there. Otherwise, Miracle, you know, will take the defensive engages. Slight lead for Ballistix, but I think they wanted more than this with this composition.
I mean, both teams pass level 13, 16 coming up for Ballistix. They have that small XP advantage, but I mean, we talked about what they want to accomplish early game. Are we sufficiently past early game where things are going to start to, you know, the scales will tip in Miracle's favor?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, you know, now that we've passed this early game and they've only been able to get 2 kills and no forts down, you know, the scaling of both comps is about similar, right? And Twilight Archon is a huge power spike post 20 because you can have Archon forever as long as you can continue to auto-attack with it. But for Miracle, again, the longer the game goes, the more damage everyone's going to do, the less relevant structures become, etc. And Miracle has Li Ming and Phoenix. So they have good poke, they have good siege. They could use that fact to, as the game goes longer and once we get to 20, just continue to push down lanes and try to push down structures. But they're not, I don't feel like they're utilizing that as well as they could be. But I think eventually as the game goes longer, that will become a bigger factor.
Well, 16 is up for Ballistix. We'll see the Judgment going in already, looking to grab another kill there onto Phoenix, but actually the Tongue Lash actually hits onto Hooligan, kind of preventing him from going any deeper. I can finish my words here. Judy is way up in the front line, doing his job pretty well, but I don't know if he's maybe extended a little bit too far, and he will go down as the first casualty for Miracle.
Such good execution on the Sniper. Once Sniper was low, he wasn't relevant in the fight. They had control of both shrines before they actually forced this fight. So they used the objective to force a bad fight for Miracle. This forced Nitrogen to go up to the top to actually take back the shrine. He went up here, he got it, but it's a short-lived victory because now Ballistix has control over the map. Nitrogen trying to bait this as Sniper comes up. Meanwhile, Franco gonna die. But up in the top lane, what's more important is that this actually could be a Dragon Knight if they lose control. Here's the grab on the Sniper. They're going to get control of this, and this should be a Dragon Knight now for Ballistix. So using the fact that the Dragon Knight was channeled and they could unleash it to force a bad fight for Miracle, very well played. The synergy there to blow up Phoenix, you know, in this case, was what, you know, even though he survived, led to their victory here and led to this Dragon Knight.
And you know, sometimes you play against the Phoenix and it just seems like his shield is infinite and always comes back and regenerates, and other times you watch games like this where he just is consistently the focus of this these blow-up attempts by Ballistix. He's been taken down, I think, out of 3 of their 4 kills have been on Phoenix, so clearly a target there. And maybe it's not quite as early as Ballistix would have liked for their composition, but finally things are really coming together.
Yeah, and it's good that this happens before 20 because Sniper will get the extra shield at 20 to where when he takes lethal damage, he gets an extra shield bar, similar to how Johanna gets her indestructible. So that's going to make it a lot more difficult to kill him. One thing we haven't really talked about is Decker's lack of, you know, early game cleanse. So that's another thing that this Judgment really plays into, is just no cleanse ability reliably here for Sniper. He's the target again, gets kicked, and is blown up by a Pulse Bomb.
God. Every time I underestimate how much damage that Pulse Bomb does. So it's going to get another kill, and it just goes from bad to worse. Decker, Kane, and now that is going to be Nacho Jin out of there as well. Ballistix just really snowballing here.
This feels like such a horrible defeat for Miracle because they were in their element. They had control.
No way, is Frankel dead here?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
He dies to the Aldruins. This feels like such a horrible loss for Miracle because they had control of a comp that was in its prime. This Pulse will get another kill. That's the wipe. And Miracle just now has lost the game. You know, they're going to respawn here. They still have 3 keeps up, but 20's upon them, 3 levels behind. They just will not be able to compete anymore. Twilight Archon is going to be the big level 20 upgrade here for the side of Ballistix, because now they can just, as you can see, SDE, see that bar below? For those who don't know what Twilight Archon does, every time you auto-attack, it resets the Archon timer. It does extra damage. The Archon is just going to allow them to freely take this keep, and they may even be able to do a core push here with Johanna having 20 seconds on the death timer. I mean, Miracle is totally dead. Feels bad, man. First day back for Nacho Jin, and it's not a happy ending.
This is Ballistix' cosmic punishment for leaving the team. Yeah, Judgment into Nacho Jin having another very bad day. Well, I guess Isolation will keep him in there until one day a Pulse Bomb happens and he's really out of there again.
A good attempt to stop this by Miracle, but it's just not going to be enough. And that's going to be the core blowing up. That's going to be Ballistix taking game number 1 here in this series. And you know, Sniper was doing his best. He popped out the salvo, but SC recalled to dodge it. We saw the Storm Shield come up from Magi. And Ballistix, what was a shaky draft, I think that was not what they wanted this Dragonshire map pick to be about. And they picked the Tracer into the Johanna. They make a big statement back on their first day of HGC Korea.
Yeah, a little bit of a slow start. You saw things like that the solo bunker forced out up top, and I was like, oh, well, you know, maybe the Nacho Jin hype is back, but I think it kind of became a little bit of the SCSC show there at the end. In fact, if you look at damage stats, oh wow, actually,
yeah, nearly 50k.
Yeah. Okay.
So remember too that some of the things that I think led to Ballistix' victory was when we saw these pushes fail because they didn't have the ability to shut down like the top push and the collapses to try to kill Jungha, they were always trying to get that neutral Knight camp, and they were controlling the bottom Siege Giant camps, and they had Tastar so they could push waves quickly to empower those Siege Giants, so they used a lot of macro aspects, even though their comp wasn't really designed for macro. They had quick clear with Tastar Rhaegar. You know, SC is quite good at soloing camps as well. He can use a camp to kind of farm up his Pulse Bomb and do some damage, and, you know, obviously Tastar Rhaegar can rotate over there. He's a roaming hero. So they used a comp that's not traditionally strong for macro to control certain aspects of the game. Whenever Miracle was kind of focused on one part of the map, they were going elsewhere, getting those camps, especially in the bottom lane, which was pretty cool. And I feel like the comp wasn't exactly what they necessarily wanted. The Kerosene ban was what ruined it, but they made it work in the end.
So you mentioned before today not being sure exactly